Who is ultimately to blame for FTX? Is it Sam Bankman-Fried and co? Is it the SEC and other would-be regulators? Or is it all of us? Well, the answer is, of course, that the majority of this mess has been caused by a handful of people. The mess continues to get worse as well. 2 weeks after FTX filed for bankruptcy, new boss John J. Ray III has said he has, quote, never seen such a complete failure of corporate controls. Quite the damning statement. And jaws everywhere have been dropping over things like emojis being used to approve expenses and the use of corporate funds to buy homes for employees. Now, all of this came out ahead of the first bankruptcy hearing in the US state of Delaware, but that has now started, and there is a lot more coming out. Sam Bankman-Fried has been the subject of yet more excoriating criticism. According to the Wall Street Journal, a substantial amount of assets are stolen or missing. Lawyer James Bromley has said that investigators are struggling with an absence of information, and added that FTX was under the control of what he believed was inexperienced and possibly compromised individuals. Perhaps most damningly, Bromley went on to say that FTX was effectively run as SBF's personal fiefdom. For many, this story highlights what happens when too much power is wielded by too few.
What we've seen in crypto is a lot of individually driven organizations that was scaled very rapidly, where you still have very few people making majority of the decisions and running the operations. They don't have the right teams, they don't have the right controls in place.
Exchanges or other custodians can fall to hacks, to mismanagement, to outright theft or fraud, which is what we've basically seen with the FTX.
The bigger question for crypto right now, though, is whether this is just a few bad apples or whether it's something more. Since the story broke, there have been myriad calls for tighter regulations, not least of which has come from the likes of US President Joe Biden. But not everyone thinks that's the solution here. Rajagopal Menon of Indian crypto exchange WazirX says that you can't write or legislate for human greed or temptation. He added, it's important to remember that the Bernie Madoff scam and the Enron collapse were both happening in one of the most regulated financial markets in the world, and they still happened. Madoff, of course, was sentenced to 150 years in prison for his role in his Ponzi scheme, while Enron's Jeffrey Skilling was initially given 24 years. Their exploits made it clear that crooks, acting alone or in very small groups, can rise to power regardless of strict rules. So, was what happened at FTX unique to the crypto space? Well, not according to Alessio Coaglini of Hex Trust and Igneous Terrenus of crypto incubator Davion Labs.
This really doesn't have anything to do with blockchain technology. It's just financial crimes that have been built on top of a new market created by blockchain technology.
Their success got into their head, and they just thought, they can throw away everything that the previous generation has built, and they just think, they can do it with really kind of like just cavalierly and do it on the fly.
There's good reason to suspect that what SBF and others did at FTX broke laws. That is why there is a series of investigations in the US and elsewhere, and a criminal probe, for instance, in the Bahamas, where FTX was headquartered. Better rules will help the whole sector in the aftermath of this. That much is self-evident. But some say that that alone isn't going to be enough, and the whole crypto community needs to ultimately do more from here on in.
The main players, they have to kind of lead the way to a better market and sustainable market. And at the same time, I wouldn't even discount the fact that there's a co-responsibility from institutional investors that in an indirect way, bad companies that didn't have really the best governance and approach to providing this kind of business to retail and institutional clients.
Custodians like the Hex Trust, like First Digital and others have all called for greater segregation of assets in the wake of this mess. And self-custody, of course, is already increasing as a result of FTX and what we are seeing at other exchanges as well. If you want to know more about that, do check out our recent episode on it. For many, the obvious solution would be decentralization, though, rather than more regulation. While it does have its flaws, the key to this argument really is that no single person can ultimately end up in control.
The reason why we haven't seen that much kind of like systematic failure in DeFi is because everything is traceable on chain. Not to say that DeFi is perfect, because the vast majority of exploits do happen on DeFi, but they are also very, very transparent.
The other awkward truth is that we collectively miss this. Everyone had appeared to buy into the myth of Sam Bankman-Fried, celebrities, politicians, the media, and especially investors. And this is where big improvements also lie. Institutions need to do a better job of due diligence in crypto.
When you have the largest investors investing into FTX, retail investors, they're not supposed to do their due diligence. They would just expect that player to have been due diligenced by somebody that knows more than them.
And so we come back once again to this issue of trust. Proof of reserves may go some way towards rebuilding that, but the lesson for everybody in the meantime is clear. Do your homework and be careful, especially right now. You never know where the next bad apple may be lurking. Alright, that's it for this episode. Do like and subscribe to this video for more content like it, and let us know your thoughts down in the comments.